So one thing you shared, Molly, that I thought was really interesting was one of the biggest differences that you noticed was in energy and considering how you show up from an energetic perspective and how there's differences between sales and engineering there. I think there's some interesting correlations to communication with that. So I was curious to know, like, what are there certain sort of practices or ways that you approach, I guess, generating the appropriate amount of energy for your audience that you carry over from your experience with sales to the work that you're doing now? Like, are there any sort of like practices or lessons that you're applying from that perspective around like how to manage your energy? Because what I'm thinking about is like some of the patterns that have been shared with me is like, I'm introverted and doing extroverted things drains my energy. And some people have shared that I've had to learn to become more extroverted or to give more energy, and it's been a hard thing to learn. So I was wondering if there's any sort of practices that you've integrated from that experience and the stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of I had to learn how to talk to people. I thought I was an awesome communicator, and so I really, when I went into sales, I really, that's kind of where I go to like, that's how I actually created this like party conversation. Like, what's your favorite movie? Or now these days, it's like, what are you watching on Netflix? Um, my go-tos, just kind of get the conversation going. And it's a good way to gauge like the other person's way of communicating, because there is this aspect of miming that I think we naturally do. Like, I have this tendency now, like I'm looking on this video feed and I see Jerry like leaning back, getting his cup of coffee, and part of me wants to do the same thing, lean back, get my glass of water, right? Like we mirror all the time. And this is a kind of a nonverbal way of just kind of aligning with someone. And so for me, to be able to kind of modulate everything from volume to energy to body language, how expressive I am. I think there is like a cultural aspect to this. And it's just, one of the tools that because I have a global team, one of the tools that we have at Cisco is called Globe Smart, where basically you can actually put in all the different locations of your team. And you can also basically use this tool to characterize yourself, and it will match how similar or different you are across different cultures represented in your team, which is incredibly helpful because it's a way for me to not only modulate my communication based from a cultural aspect, but also when I'm listening, maybe if there's a culture that's super direct, I shouldn't take things personally. If there's a culture that's super indirect, maybe I should try for clarity in a different way and things like that. So there's one piece. And I think that the cultural piece, especially as, the world just gets smaller, is super important. The other is, yeah, just like getting the conversation going and just kind of understanding how someone is like showing up. I will say that I'm not an introvert, but like, I know after this conversation, I'm going to need to like just take a break, right? Because for me, there is a point in time where like I'm very much in the middle of the scale. I do need to kind of like recollect my energy. And so for that, it is planning. Like what I did before this is I block off 30 minutes. And right after this, I've blocked off an hour. I just know myself. I just know I'm going to need that time. And that's okay. And that took some practice with sales because there were times when I was like back to back to back to back. But the thing is I have shown up poorly when I do that because I just didn't have the sustaining energy to constantly have to socialize what our products do and what our value is. It just gets tough. And even if it's the same conversation, because there are times in sales where you should end up having the same customer problem over and over and over again. So it's like Groundhog's Day where you have the same conversation over and over and over again. And even that is draining. Just because you have like the pitch in the back of your head doesn't mean it takes any less energy. So those are the things. I don't know if that's helpful, but definitely being aware of your audience, knowing like any type of cultural nuances.